Good morning.
All right.
I'm good. I had a shower.
Pretty good about that. Still don't have a.
In that field. Next, we have writer-producer Robert Knott, who is, by the way, he made the film Appaloosa, which we will be watching tonight here in the auditorium, and I'll be doing a Q&A with him after that. He comes from a showbiz family, and he's got extensive credits on the stage, the big screen, and the small screen. Appaloosa, of course, was based on a novel by Robert B. Parker. Some of you may know as the creator of Spencer, Private Eye. He also wrote a lot of westerns. Robert himself is also a novelist, and he's got a new book coming out next year called Blackjack. And he's got several other Western-related film projects in the works, which I hope we'll discuss later on. You had a peak period during the 20s and 30s where you had literally dozens of cowboy stars working simultaneously in pictures for big studios and small studios alike. And to give you an idea, there was a time when a cowboy star like Gene Autry was ranked one of the top 10 box office stars, right up there with Clark Gable and Jean Harlow and all the rest. Those days are long gone, of course. The Westerns finally migrated to the small screen primarily, and the number of big screen Westerns gradually diminished through the 60s and 70s, largely, I think, as a result of changes in our culture. We had other genres that became more popular. After we had the moon landing and some of our other space projects, science fiction became very big. But the movie industry is nothing if not cyclical, and sooner or later the time comes again. The question is, do we have people, since we're not making as many Westerns and we don't have as many people in all phases of the industry rooted in them solidly as were some of the people working 60, 70, 80 years ago, the question is, what are the Westerns of tomorrow going to look like? Is there a way to make them viable from a box office perspective, or are they just going to wind up in venues, DVD, video on demand, things like that? So let's transition now to the writing, assembling of these projects and putting them together. You know, Westerns were never known in the old days for their complex plots. Basically, they were little morality plays. It was very easy to identify the good guy and the bad guy. There was a simple central objective, getting this ranch, buying up property to get the water rights, or buying up property to sell it to the railroad. It was all pretty simple stuff. So the stories were really got a short shrift a lot of times. Now, of course, in the early days, as we've seen, and as we're seeing this weekend with the various versions of Riders of the Purple Sage, there were a lot of books by authors like Max Brand and Zane Grey and many others, Walt Coburn, W.C. Tuttle, that were used as the bases of these stories, but they were all pretty much cut from similar patterns. I should say the Hollywood adaptations. There were some more complex elements in the original stories, but by the time Hollywood got to them, they watered them down a little bit to make them these morality plays. And the example that I always draw, especially with the B-Westerns, with heroes like Hopalong Cassidy, to me, they're very much in the vein of Arthurian legend. You know, the legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table are very specifically grounded in a historical period and an historical place, and yet they're not really realistic stories. Well, Hopalong Cassidy and his Bar 20 Boys, to me, are the Western answers to King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. But you can't make those kinds of movies anymore. I think we have the culture has changed, and certainly the kids who followed the Westerns years ago are not the same people who are going to the theaters today or buying the DVDs. So Robert, as somebody who's going to start a project, what are you thinking about in terms of how much realism do you want to incorporate, how much characterization as opposed to very simple chase and fights? I mean, what goes in now to the writing of a Western property?
I think well, first of all, I just have to say, Julie over here, my lovely wife, wanted me to make sure that I express that Westerns are alive and well, and they're going to be coming back. So there is for every panel like this where somebody's talking about, well, it's dead, the kids don't want to see it, everything's sci-fi, everything's CGI. I think all that stuff is over, personally. I really do. I think that there's going to be a change I think there's going to be a getting back to the earth, getting back to, and as far as stories go, just good stories. You know, complex stories, sure. Morality tells, good versus evil. But, you know, the spirit of the West has not been taught for a while to our younger generation. They don't really, you know, unless you're up here or in Oklahoma or Texas, whatever, you don't even see very many cowboys or cowboy hats. So they're not very used to that. But I think the more you get, if you know, it helps when there's a good one that comes along that, you know, uplifts the opportunity for others. Like when we did Appaloosa, you know, I was a little bit frightened. You walk into those test screenings and, you know, you got Eddie Murphy as a 300-pound fat guy over here on the wall, and Ashton Kutcher and Speed Racer and all this kind of stuff, and you think, okay, that's what people want to see. That's what, you know, studios are making. And there's some truth to that. But also, I think, you know, we got in, we made it. Could we do it today? Yeah, we could do it today. We can make it happen. And I feel, as far as my plot, to get back to your original question, I can't, unfortunately, I can't think in the film plot realm very well. My brain doesn't work like that. I wished it did, because it would be a lot easier. I like a complex story. I like these stories to have a level of mystery, a level of suspense, and a level of whodunit. And I think the more that you incorporate that, and the more that we stay on top of it, the more opportunities we're going to have. For not just me, for all other filmmakers. There's I was just talking to Ken here, there's a film coming out with Leonardo DiCaprio. It'll be coming out, I think, it's supposed to be a really tough shoot that these guys went on. It's the same director that made Birdman. But you got Leo DiCaprio, and the Academy Award winning director, doing a Western. It's a remake of Man in the Wilderness, the Richard Harris movie where you get, you know, with the bear and all that. So there's, you know, there's opportunity.
The finished film is assembled, put together, edited, scored, whatnot, post-production. It gets to Ken Turan, who gets to see it. So Ken, from your viewpoint, as a spectator, somebody who, like all of us, is seeing a film and weighing in on its qualities, positive and negative, what is your sense of the Westerns that you've seen, say in the last 10 or 20 years, and the trends that you've noticed in the genre?
I have a great fondness for the Western, and you know, I think it's not, I agree. I mean, I think that people, what happens is that there are trends in what executives want to make, which is a different thing than what audiences want to see. Whenever a good Western is made, people tend to come out for it, and everyone's, oh, the Western is back. Well, the Western really has never gone anywhere. Just people just kind of decided for their own reasons they didn't want to make it. And one of the things I wanted to mention, I got an email just literally the day before I came up here. I mean, one of the places that we're seeing now, not only are we seeing direct-to-video Westerns, but we're seeing a lot of independent films that are Westerns. People just like Westerns. I got an email from a theater in Hollywood called The Arena. It's right next door to the Man's Chinese. And there's announcing a new film called Western Religion. And the subject line of the email was, "The year of the indie Western just got better." You know, there's been a lot of small independent Westerns. There was one in Sundance called Western with Michael Fassbender, who's really one of the biggest stars we have today. It's made in New Zealand, you know, but it's American Western. And people like Westerns, and I think they're not going anywhere. People just have to make them.